there ought to be some kind of alarm that goes off and tell you, put on the recording, dummy, because I could never remember either.
Well, the dummy started recording, so my apologies, folks.
I like that one he's got where it's like the highway power station.
Yep.
That'd be kind of cool. And the other thing is, it would. I feel like it could serve as a distraction just because of the spinning motion out of your peripheral, but also it blocks the view of the traffic going the opposite
Yeah.
direction. I don't know if that's a plus or
There's some people that are already making these, but if you can do it really, really well and really, sleek, then I think they could be added and, I guess, enhance an already kind of concrete, terrible looking highway system.
I kind of already wrote my comments on Maro, but I was kind of saying to him maybe it would be interesting to see if you could incorporate like a bike computer into the top two on the right, just so like it tells you information about your trip and stuff like that. And then, but like in an unintrusive way, just because he's already talking about like it's smartphone compatible and all that stuff. And then on the bottom or middle left, the garden lights, I was wondering, like, since it's Tesla, why not line the driveway or why not line a walkway? And what would look different about it if you did that? But I think they're both beautiful forms.
Okay. I like them. A lot of different backpacks, backpacking equipment with solar chargers. I think this one's a unique one as well. So that one definitely gets a vote for me. The garden light gets a vote for me. I really like the middle highway section. I think there's a lot of energy being used on the interstate and highways that's not being utilized. And that was a good comment about being able to get the data from your trip. He does have, I think, GPS in there, but it doesn't say anything about how that's getting used.
My suggestion would be, I love the bicycle idea of it, but you need to, if you're going to get into that, you need to find something that's really unique and new, something that'll get you, into it. And I think this notion of the combination between bicycles, which is pedal operated, and electronics, it's never really had a traditional connection at all. They've been two completely separate things. And yet with GPS and solar cells and charging and all that stuff, I think it's a natural connection. But the way that, we see it here, which is just, a battery mounted on one of the bars of the bike frame, it's not enough. Maybe you could consider doing a control thing that replaces the handlebars and, has readouts and some kind of GPS stuff on it, electronic wise. You might even be able to put a few solar cells on that. I don't know if a bike is the best way to collect things with solar cells because it doesn't really have enough surface area. Actually, the rider does. I might imagine a version with a vest, that's all made out of solar cells, because the humans has a lot more surface area than the bike itself. And then you just plug a wire into the bike and, you'd be charging it yourself by the sun.
Well, he might be using just the battery pack is the design. The bike itself is secondary. Like you could attach this battery pack to any bike and charge the battery through pedaling.
That makes sense. But he needs to get a mechanical input then. Traditionally with a generator on a bike, the old French bikes used to have that little generator that rolled on the back tire, which isn't very efficient. If you could get something that's hooked into the pedal set, more mechanically built in, I think it's better. I've found it's very difficult to design a new bike if you have to incorporate the old frame. And I think it might actually be easier to not design the wheels and handlebars and seat, but just design the frame with this stuff integrated with it. And maybe it would feel a little bit less added on.
Okay. Cool. Well, I hope that's helpful, Noah. And my apologies to everybody again for not recording from the get-go. If y'all remind me whenever we do this, then I'll stop kicking my own ass about it.
Who are we on to next?
We're going to Braun. So this is going to be Nick. Nick's doing some equipment, specifically tennis racket equipment.
Yeah. You heard me, right? Okay. So sadly for me, tennis has been around since like the 14th century, so there's not a lot of change in the rackets. So I tried to look at other racket sports. I looked at a hopper. I looked at racquetball a little bit. I looked at table tennis. And I ultimately just fell back on tennis itself. So where I think I can actually innovate is in the parts of the racket. So the part in between the grip and the handle, or the head of the racket, that's called the throat. So there's a lot of different variation there. And then I'm in the last sketches, I've been looking at the actual handle, and I don't think Braun would use like a leather grip. So I'm trying to find some way to incorporate the actual head of the racket into the handle and just have it all exposed as part of this one piece. And then those are just some quick fusion renders I just threw in right now.
That looks nice and slick. I think that's an approach that you could make work. Remember the changes that have happened in tennis rackets. I remember when I first started playing tennis, I was using my dad's tennis racket from the 1940s, and it was beautifully laminated wood thing, you know, but it felt like old world craftsmanship, you know. And then there have been changes quite a bit, really, to the aluminum rackets and fiberglass ones, and there has been quite a bit of change. And maybe you start looking at, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody have one look quite as smooth and shiny and plasticky as Braun products, but I think you certainly could, and that might be really interesting. Maybe you could come up with some kind of texture where it can be both shiny and not slippery when your hand is sweaty. And
yeah, I was looking into how I could give either maybe some grooves or just something in the handle to, you know, make it look like a handle.
Yeah, but still, you know, have the slickness. And I really think it's possible to do a lot of change with tennis rackets, but it's all in detail, you know. I mean, the racket is still pretty much the same size as it was, although they've actually gotten a tiny bit bigger. And they're much herkier looking now. If you see a really old tennis racket, you know, from 200 years ago, they're very delicate looking, you know, and they used to play this weird game called court tennis. There's a few court tennis places where I was at I forget, I think it's in Newport, Rhode Island, where they have the Tennis Hall of Fame, and they have a tennis court up that's a reproduction of one from Europe from the 14th century. You might look into that real early stuff, and what you're going to discover is how much the business has changed since then. And it was a rather slow, delicate game, and now it's this heavy sort of power-hitting game. I don't know. The world has changed a lot, and I think tennis rackets should change more. Let's do it.
Yeah, I wasn't looking that far back. I was looking like 50s, 60s when they were transitioning from metal to wood, but I will definitely go further back.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it's interesting to see that stuff, and you realize, you know, well, for instance, as I recall, there were leather balls. It really didn't bounce very well. And with a court tennis thing, though, they had a weird gallery along the side, and you could actually bounce the ball off the roof of the gallery because it was like a sloped greenhouse roof, and that allowed the thing to be a little more lively. And it's a strange. You might study the early game because you realize how different it was, and then if you see images of people playing it, man, they're wearing 15th century clothes, you know. And this was a total rich person's game too.
Yeah, like looking at these handles here at the bottom was reminding me, I was trying to find a video. It's Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. They had a video back in the 90s called Scream. And they had these really slick, almost like Tron-like rackets that they were playing with, like a futuristic racquetball. And that's what those remind me of. Those are pretty slick. So we were talking about, Bill was saying, how can we change the racket? Because it's had the same form for many, many years. I think check out Michael Jackson's Scream video. It was the most expensive at the time it was shot, but pretty interesting. And it's slick, like black and white, very sleek, modernistic futuristic views that Braun kind of exudes in some cases. All right, who's next? Zach.
Right. So for mine, I'm designing like an end table or a center console table to like a living room area. I didn't really focus too much on the actual logo or the colors because I found that on most of their products, the logo wasn't very outstandingly pronounced. It was mostly very small, and the colors are mostly the same throughout all of their products, whether it be like black or white. But I looked into a lot of the design principles of Dieter Rams, which was one of their main designers for a really long time. And I found that a lot of it was about symmetry, distinctive shapes, iconic details, fluid geometry, things like that. So those are basically a lot of the designs that I tried to go through with these different sets of furniture. And then I also looked into some products that they used to create, like speakers, things that they don't do anymore because now they're mainly onto shaving and items like that, but things that would be a lot bigger. And I found that they were kind of like boxy, but still like very geometric and fluid. And some of them I also modeled off of some of their shavers or some of their Oral-B products.
I might suggest that you look at the furniture from another company, which to me always brought to mind the same aesthetic that Braun did. And it's not produced, well, the company is still in business. It's Italian. It's called Cartel. I think it's spelled Kartell. And look up particularly the old stuff from the 1970s. In the 1970s, they produced a lot of very slick plastic end tables and small tables and storage things. And I have a beautiful Cartel storage cylinder. It's shaped like a drum and it has a sliding door on it. It is literally the slickest, shiniest, smoothest piece of furniture I've ever seen. And very interesting. They're all simply molded. They're all incredibly minimalistic. And I think they're a good inspiration for furniture that's connected with Braun because they have the same sort of shiny, smooth, perfect plasticiness.
I'm kind of liking this one down here. It's got a little bit of a cubby. You could put a couple magazines down in there. Has the top. You might be a little fearful things might slide over the side, but it's furniture. You're going to have things slide off your couch too. I do like these little inner pyramids. Where did that come from? Is that part just an idea that you were having?
Yeah, that was just like a recurring idea I was having because on the first one here, if the top one that has the triangular legs. So originally I drew the legs first and I was thinking about how they would be, like you think about your idea if you flip it upside down. So then I was trying it out as like a tabletop almost. And then I thought of just having it maybe in the middle to have like things that like undesirable items, you just kind of slide them into the middle and fall right into the recess.
Zach, when I look at this little table, it makes me think of if you can imagine a strange geometric shape, because when I look at this thing, it makes me think that there's something in your back of your mind that's not coming out yet. Imagine a cube, and we're almost looking at a cube here with modified sort of the sides that touch the ground. But imagine a cube where the surfaces, instead of being a square, are a shallow pyramid that goes in. Now, I think that's what we're looking at here on the top of this thing. But it starts about halfway from the edge to the center. And I would probably start the pyramid right at the edge, and then it dips down, and then there's a recess in the top of this thing to stick something like a sheet of tempered glass in there, for a wear service. And then you might consider doing the exact same thing with the sides and leaving the one panel, the one at the bottom, out. And I think you're going to end up with something. It's a cube with inverted internal facing pyramid faces. And I think it might be actually pretty easy to make and mold. And I think it could be structurally really strong. And by being such an efficient shape, it can be made out of very, very thin material and still, be plenty stiff. And anyway, I'm intrigued. You need to sort of play with the geometries here and see if you can come up with something. I might also consider doing things, with that kind of stuff. Make some models out of folded Bristol board or something, and rolled Bristol board pieces. I think you could make some nice little models. I know they're not computer models, but that's the kind of the way I think. And the nice thing about that is the fact that if you make a cardboard model that's stiff as hell, the real one's going to be stiff as hell. Strength comes from geometry, not from materials.
It's true.
Thank you.
Emily, I like how you're dragging those notes, those leader lines to various things. And sorry for dragging that thing all over creation. Okay, so this is gonna be Forrest.
Yep. Okay, so for me, I personally wanted to kind of draw inspiration from the 70s, mainly because of the color schemes that were very prominent back then. Very bold, very, I guess, kind of not clashing, but more or less complementing a monotone colorway, either it be kind of a off-white or kind of a pale gray. So I wanted to kind of play around with more or less the colors as I started iterating more. I wanted to kind of go into the 70s tennis shoe era of design. And that's, if you see from like the top left all the way top to the bottom right, you see me start like, I guess, more or less going into a more simple silhouette and having less crazy panels and more of a sleek overtone. All kind of reminiscent of the old style tennis shoes from back in the day where they're very minimalist, and in terms of color, it was only kind of one hit of, I guess, a pop of color on the shoe.
I like single pop color in there. That's nice.
Do you imagine these things in canvas? What sort of material do you see them in?
So I think to kind of hark back to the heritage of tennis shoes, good old full grain leather would probably be best for it. But any synthetic really nowadays could do the job. I feel like to kind of drive it forward in this time and era, I think a nice synthetic leather with kind of laser etching or kind of embossing rather than stitch lines would be a lot better.
Yeah, I kind of think, a smooth enveloping shape, maybe even one that's shiny. I don't know if that's bad. I mean, leather can be finished in a matte way or it can be finished in a shiny way. And
Right.
I think minimizing joints, maybe even get rid of them completely, and maybe it's a molded shoe. Like I mentioned before that, I mean, they managed to mold Crocs all in one piece, but they come off as very rough and rustic kind of things. And I think I would go for maybe the same kind of process, but a slick, smooth, perfect surface on the outside, and more aesthetic references to tennis shoes instead of, well, I don't know, Crocs and molded plastic shoes always tend to look kind of cartoon-like to me.
Yeah.
They're exaggerated. No, we don't want to exaggerate here. We want to make an elegant, the kind of shape that everybody knows they really like shoes to be shaped like that.
Right.
Funny story about Crocs. I had a pair for my camp shoes while backpacking. So you have your hiking boots, your hiking shoes, and then you need something cozy to, just make your feet feel good after, 10 hours of hiking. So I had a pair of neon green Crocs so I could find them in the dark. And then I wore them to work one day because I broke my toe and my boss nearly fired me.
Oh, jeez.
So don't wear Crocs to work.
Duly noted.
Unless your company's like, yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, well,
Crenshaw like
that's the way all companies ought to be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not.
These are great looking shoes. I really like them a lot.
Thanks.
I like this design right here. It's almost like a loafer.
Yeah,
So it's like a
kind of.
kind of a mix between like a loafer and for some reason this just reminds me of the stretch like you see on a pair of I can't remember what they're called, ropers. Um,
Mm,
I can't think of the name of them, but you see them in Australia.
right. Yeah, that was more or less inspired by boat shoes, kind of like the whole Sperry line. Uh, Very minimal, very kind of just, you slip on and then go anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the nice thing about boat shoes is they've got the word boat in them, and what it really means is yacht shoes.
Right.
Remember, every time I had a pair of those things, and every time I put them on, I felt like I was like Mr. Top of the world, you know. And I mean, it's nice. And I'm looking at the one on the right there, the white one with the brawn red in the back and the yellow and the blue. I think that could be the slickest boat shoe looking thing I've ever seen. You know, the Mondrian colors, a slick name like Braun on it. And why not? You know, I mean, they don't have to be expensive, but they can make you feel expensive.
Right.
I like these right here. These almost remind me of like skate shoes in a way.
Yeah, that was definitely kind of the aesthetic I was going for.
Street shoes. Yeah, those are all really good. I don't have any particular favorite of any of them, so that one caught my attention. The shape of this one caught my attention. And I do like this one right over here. I think those are great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, and we're moving on to Ms. Heron.
Whoa.
Hold on. There we go. Emily, you want to talk about these, or are you taking notes?
I was taking notes, but I can talk about them some. I don't really have a ton to say about them because I feel like they kind of speak for themselves. Most people know what headphones kind of look like. The far top left is earbuds. Following it to the right is on ear. And then the rest of them are over ear because I just kind of went off on a tangent and really enjoyed it. So that's what we're looking at. I was thinking about Braun, and if I went on the over ear route, that we would do open back because it's the purest of sound. I don't know if, for those who don't know what open back is, essentially, instead of having the sides of the headphones fully closed so that no noise gets out, it actually allows noise to pass right through so that you're not getting a rebound sound, you're only getting the first wave. So that's what the grills are for. Playing around with where the logo is and how subtle or apparent it is. And yeah.
Your imagery here is beautiful. It's very slick, and the model you've chosen, this a woman with no hair, I think fits perfectly. It's really nice, and particularly the horizontal groove things. That's a classic bronze sort of grill, like from one of the hair dryers or something, and it works perfectly well. But so many of these headphone things are kind of soft and rustic, and I imagine these to be shiny and rigid and slick, and they have that sort of jewel-like feel that Braun products often have. And I think this is a perfect area, and the open grill thing there works nice, and play around with the Braun logo placement. And I actually even like the ones where you got rid of the rest of the logo and just used the A, because that looks damn good. I like them, and I've never seen square earphones before, but why not?
Sorry, I had to use the restroom real quick. I like the earbud by itself, although with the Braun being sideways, if I didn't know it was Braun, I'd have to look at it. I don't know if you want to rotate that or if you've looked at it rotated. It's still an interesting way to present the Braun logo. I see a couple of comments from these two right here, I do like both of those. I like the the aesthetic of that versus having the large A here. Although it's striking, it makes me want to kind of understand what that is, and so I might ask the person who that is. You were talking about doing bone conduction at one point, and I know that bone conduction doesn't have the fidelity right now that it might have in the future, but it's definitely an interesting concept, especially for allowing pass-through noise or awareness of your ears while still getting some soundtrack, or it can help people who have problems with their eardrums, and because it goes directly to the inner ear. Did you explore that at all, or did you just not right now?
I kind of okay. So I was gonna go in that direction right after I went in earbuds. And then something about my dad has a pair of bone conduction ones, and I was looking them up online, and a lot of the styling, I need to understand the technology a little bit better before I can style it effectively, I think. So I looked more into the technology and how they work and why they are shaped the way they are currently, because they're already pretty minimal.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to understand the component parts before I dove into that.
Yeah. Have you listened to the bone conduction things, and what do they sound like? I can't imagine it.
They sound pretty good. It's crazy how they work. They essentially, the reason why they're not so high fidelity right now is because they're the point of conduction is a thicker bone on your jaw line. But anyway, so you don't necessarily feel it. It doesn't feel like electricity is going through you. But you definitely hear it, but it leaves your ears completely open to hear everything else right now. So
yeah, I think
they're pretty cool. They sound okay. I have much better on ears, over ears, but it's just technology's new and still developing.
Yeah, I don't think they're for on ear or over ear just yet. I've heard or read some reviews because my stepmom, my dad's wife, is deaf, or mostly deaf, and so we've talked about maybe doing bone conduction for her inner ear to see if it can bypass her eardrums. And Aftershocks, I guess, has got one of the leading technologies in it. Their first version, from what I read in the reviews, gave a little bit more bass, but it vibrated your cheek so much that it kind of tickled. And the newer ones got higher fidelity in a lot of other areas, but they don't have as much impact, as much thump. So at the moment, you're right. They're still behind over ears and on ears. Cool. Yeah, I like these right here.
You like which ones? Sorry.
I like the bud. I like these two right here. This one's fun though. I like the circular pattern because I like circles. The big A is a little I'm not completely sure about it, but I'd still want to ask about it. I'm like, what is that? So
see, I scaled it back because I feel like Braun is so subtle with their branding, and that was very intense for Braun. But at the same time, I thought it was kind of fun. And makes you ask questions. So
don't feel bad about change. Time changes, and you can go from subtle to bold and see what it looks like.
Yeah, I like the way you have the Braun logo right there. Okay.
Which one are you referring to? I'm sorry, your mouse isn't quite.
Right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I like the way you incorporated that logo right there. I know you've got it down here at the bottom, yes?
Uh-huh.
Which still looks good, but I like it up here on the band.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Eric.
All right.
Oh, wait.
Wait, what?
Sorry, can somebody comment on the forms of the frontal facing ones? Because I'm really iffy on those.
These remind me a little bit about beats. Let me zoom in on this one right here. See if we can get the fidelity up on that.
It's basically the same thing. I think the proportion of the outside piece is just slightly different.
Yeah.
You might look at the way you're mounting the piece that goes over the top of your head to the earphones themselves are
Mhm.
a top pivot, right? And there's a lot of them that aren't like that, that sort of bridge around the sides of the speaker thing and allow it to pivot more. You might try several different ways because all your front ones look too similar to each other, and I don't think they, the phones themselves look very flat and kind of undynamic, and I would just look at the way that the headpiece that goes over the top of your head joins with the earphones themselves, and I think you can get a lot more interesting profile out of it. And then I would feel free to make them fatter. I remember you had a couple that stuck out like streamlined bullets or something. I'd consider that kind of stuff. I haven't seen it lately, but there's nothing wrong with it. We're not necessarily trying to preserve the person's profile. Actually having them stick out more might be more amusing. I look at Ben in the video picture there, and I see his things with those big wide things holding them on. You see that? I mean, it's interesting. It feels very technical. In fact, he feels like some kind of radio operator from some submarine or something, and it looks very scientific and that's interesting. But play with that front view, because I think all your front views they're just a little bit distilled and dried out, and you need to try something fresh.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Eric. You're working on. I thought you were working on shoes, but you had made comments that you're also wanting to think about skates. Looks like you've done.
Correct. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go in the direction of skates. And so I just wanted to focus on keeping the design really simple but functional as well. And I separated it into two parts, which is the actual boot and then the blade holder. And for the boot, I kind of want to focus on airflow through the skate, I guess, because a lot of bronze products just have a lot of holes and a lot of open spots for air to go through for a blow dryer or something. And so yeah, all those would be open holes for air to flow through it. And then if you look up above, there's one similar to a lot of the hair dryers or radios that they had. And I kind of wanted to keep it pretty simple. I know the one on the bottom, when it's colored, is kind of a lot with the blue. I kind of want to just keep it more maybe silver or gray, and then have a small accent color that goes along with it. And for the blade holders, I wanted to emphasize smooth and clean transitions between everything. Yeah. And I think the one on the right side, the gray one, is I think what I'm leaning towards right now. Yeah. It a lot of their products have a metal handle, but from the handle is that attachment where it just really smooth and just resembles their overall designs.
Are you Eric?
I'm sorry.
Play hockey?
I play when the ponds freeze over in Chicago.
Okay. Does this need to be a little bit thicker? I'm just thinking about strength.
Yeah. I was thinking that because when you stop, that would snap.
Okay.
Must for sure. So I was thinking about how to maybe make that connection either lower or yeah. I was thinking about that as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I would try to look at some other. I'm not really familiar with what the skate part and the connection between the skate part and the shoe looks like on modern skate, because the only
middle one is probably the most similar to it. I just kind of opened up some space in the middle, but it's really ribbing that connects to the middle part, that connects to the actual blade. So it's pretty sturdy. It has I don't know what to call them. It has multiple supports for it. So that's why the one on the right side would probably be pretty weak.
Yeah, but just adding a little rib on the end might just be enough to stiffen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then one on the bottom as well, probably. Yeah.
Now I've got some thoughts about this. You've got this this seam right here between your perforated material, which is, I like that idea about allowing air through because your feet get so hot, even on
Yeah,
ice.
yeah, they really do heat up.
Yeah. So being able to allow some airflow through is just going to make the meat of your feet feel pretty good.
Hmm.
The lines right here, I think, could be smoothed out a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah. I want to make all my round parts like more round, and then like my straight parts definitely like straighter and like just like immediate, rather than playing around like that.
Okay.
Yeah, my favorite thing that I see here is the both speaker grill or air intake grill on the side and the perforated ones. I think those are interesting areas. You can actually end up making the whole thing very monolithic and very smooth and streamlined.
Yeah, I was thinking about
but with holes in.
for like the nose of the boot. I kind of want to take that seam out maybe and see if I can just make that like a flat piece, like all one piece maybe. So just like make it look cleaner. Maybe have a separation somewhere else. I'm not really sure about that yet.
I don't know if they've ever done it with skates, but I remember ski boots used to be all massively heavy leather stiff things.
Mm.
And then there was a period when they started coming out with molded plastic ones.
Yeah, they're pretty
like
hard plastic.
and they looked like knight in armor
Hmm.
shoes, and I thought they were beautiful. I really liked them. I actually never had one of those things because, I mean, if you realize how long ago it was that I was skiing, it was leather shoes and wood skis, and I revarnished mine. That shows how long ago it was.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about making it the shiny plastic, like you said, just to make it like firm, but still allow the air to flow through it. And
Yeah, look at some of those really shiny boots. They had
Yeah.
a very, and as soon as you render something that's really shiny, then you start working on the shadows and the reflections and the highlight lines. And
Yeah.
you can really end up with something that's really, really attractive. Very different than something that would be a soft material. It would never have that kind of rigid shininess to it. But, it's like a suit of armor,
Mhm.
they're very beguiling.
Yeah. I think if you could stiffen this up, again with a rib, or
Yeah.
spine. I'm not sure which way you'd call.
I think someone just mentioned to check out like some figure skating skates because I know they have like the thinner attachment down the middle of them.
Okay. Cool. All right. I think we're down to, how we looking? 3 o'clock. Halfway done? Oh. This Miro. I like it. I don't like it.
Is it hard for you to slide the things around?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but
Yeah, I occasionally reach up and try to slide things around, and I've finally given up. All I do is mess things up.
and I'm just getting used to the tool. There's probably a shortcut in there that'll make it easier, but I haven't found it yet.
It is nice that we can leave comments and stuff, but it's definitely a little jittery. And people keep accidentally grabbing the.
Grabbing images.
Yes.
Now I put these frames around the outside of it, and that's also screwing up. Like when I was trying to populate some people's images in here, I would drag over and it wouldn't populate into the inner frame. But I put those frames outside just to denote who was in what group. But we can get rid of those if it's.
You can lock stuff. Like there's a little button when you click on stuff that you can click a little icon that locks it. That might help.
In charge of that, then, Zach.
Okay.
Just make it nice and neat.
All right, I'm on it.
All right.
For the time being, I got to talk about this.
Yes.
All right, so these are in no particular order. I went very broad. My prompt for myself was chair, but I took that even further to like a thing you could sit on or in. So let's start with the first one. That's just kind of a basic looking chair. It's the idea with this one being less about like specifically for the Petzl brand. This is kind of the far end of the spectrum of like, hey, it's just a chair and I'd put Petzl stuff on it. The other next one is much further towards Petzl. This being kind of two little hooks that you'd like clamp to an I-beam or some sort of girder thing, and that would all the Petzl harnesses have little like loops around like your sides that you could hook onto. So the idea being that like if you wanted to relax for a little bit, you hook these into your I-beam. This would be for construction workers, by the way, because they have like a professional version, and you'd be able to like sit in that. I don't know. Next one being a chair, and Bill, you kind of talked about this with some other people's, and I definitely should have done this. I should have been more clear about the materials here. The first one was more probably wooden, being more like a home good thing. This one being more probably an amalgam of like the Petzl materials. So like I was thinking like the legs and the upper parts of it would be kind of made of the same like molded aluminum that a lot of Petzl products are made of, and the seat cushions being kind of like that like not foam but like the squishy fabricy stuff. Next,
Zach.
Aluminum that was anodized colored. And if you think of an analogy for furniture, the Charles and Ray Ames furniture with the die-cast aluminum bottoms, a lot of it was their airport furniture and their office furniture. But they're beautiful things. But if you were to orange anodize all those things, you'd start to approach a Petzl sort
yeah,
of.
exactly. Ben, did you have a thing?
You got froze, or your screen froze for a second, but I don't know if it was you or if it was me, because I just had a thing pop up that said internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, so the next one is just another basic chair. I kind of like the shape of it, but it's not super Petzl specific. This being more like, this would be what Petzl, like people that are big Petzl fans would have at their house to relax between hikes on the mountain. The next one is kind of the opposite direction. It's kind of like an Eno sort of thing where you'd strap it between two trees and it'd be more of a chair rather than an amorphous canvas thing. So trying to put some more form into that. Next one being something that would hang from like equipment that you'd use to attach to a mountain or something like that. That would kind of be a seat. I don't think it actually works in terms of the physics. I think you'd kind of just fall out of it, but I could put some more work into actually how that would come together. That's more just the idea of doing something like that. Next one being kind of like a camping sort of chair that would fold out. I think this is a slightly more unique way of kind of going away from the typical folding chair that you see on for a lot of camping things. I kind of like the shape of it. The next one is super basic. I have seen products like this before. This one isn't super original, but I would just be making one specifically for Petzl, where it's just two kind of rigid sheets that are held together so that they form a right-ish angle, and you can just sit on the ground with it. It's super, super light and would be kind of pretty good for a Petzl audience. Next one being, it's a little silly. This is my 10th idea. This is kind of like a kit that would transform a log or something into a chair by like screwing in or like nailing in different parts, and it would come together to be a chair on a log. And the last one is a different take on the folding out with the fabric, keeping it rigid, or not rigid, but taut. I kind of like it because it's super basic and would probably be super light. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, that final one I think would be really interesting to work on. Remember, the center of gravity of a human is aligned through their belly button, right? So the center of weight of a human, even if they're in a seated position, is actually still a couple of inches into their body through their belly button. And what you'll discover is that if you look at your side view of this chair,
yeah,
that's further forward than the pivoting and the front leg of the way you've got the chair there. So you'll need to take that.
I would have to adjust that.
Move it quite a bit further forward.
Ooh,
But
wow.
once you did that, I think that you're going to end up with a pretty neat design here. And the triangular bit, the way the shape goes, I think it's really interesting. And, you know, these kind of triangular sort of camp stool things are actually really popular. None of them are very comfortable. They're very tiny. This one actually seems to have the potential of being pretty comfortable and still have a connection with, you know, outdoor kind of things. And, you know, if we made those tubes out of super slick orange anodized aluminum, holy cow, that could be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I like the outdoor aspects of I guess this one right over here. You know, you said, yeah, there's some other things that are similar out there.
Yeah.
Reminds me of something like if you're like up against a wall, you know, they have like these bivouac that's kind of a tent that you can sleep in or just
Uh-huh.
sit in, and that's hanging up on a rock. But they also make bivouacs that are up on flat faces.
Whoa.
That reminds me of, what if you had that like in a crack on a wall while your friends are rock climbing, and
Wait, sorry, Ben. How do you spell that? I want to look that up.
I think it's bivouac, BIVOUVAC, bivouac. Shit, I don't remember.
I think technically the term means totally ad hoc place to stay. It's like, it's like if you're a soldier and all of a sudden they tell you, halt here, we'll move on in the morning. Okay, this is your home. Make use of it.
Okay.
There's another image right there. People on a rock wall, kind of hard to see.
Whoa.
And I'll try to see if I can send you a link. Like portalage is another one, or a cabana.
Okay.
But I'll send you some links.
Cool.
I do like this one right here, because it's a packable one and people are on the move. This one, as Bill was saying, you're going to have to adjust your center of gravity to accommodate a human.
Yeah, that one's not gonna
But
work physically.
And the one below it as well.
Yeah.
They're nice concepts. I'm attracted. I think they can be worked out.
Catching my eye. This is an interesting one. I can see my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law's an iron worker, and he's
Really?
in high places. But how easy would it be for him to clip it in and then unclip it? You have to worry about OSHA if you're on a job site.
Oh yeah, big time.
You're going to have to worry about regulations on that one. It still might be an interesting thing. And this one, it is playing a lot on the Eno and the other types of hammocks. But it's got some things there. It almost reminds me of a slingshot. Like, I know and there's buds going to grab the back of it and pull it as hard as they can
Yeah.
out of it. Just be careful of that.
True.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
All right, Jordan, were you able to make it? You are. You're here.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Jordan.
Hi. So I'm doing an app for Petzl. And I kind of I guess was just kind of exploring like what are things like really unique to Petzl, like the products. Like would people want access to product manuals, how-to things, instructions, everything from like climbing techniques, because they have a lot of just information all about that on their site. And then also looking at maybe things that aren't exactly like specific to the Petzl brand, but more towards like the lifestyle of someone who is a Petzl user. So, having access to like news, weather functions, emergency contacts, digital compasses, just all those kinds of things. So I kind of broke it down into 4 categories. You have like your tech tips, which would include like maybe videos, how-to articles, product manuals, gadgets would be like your things. Like maybe you can access the weather within the app, maps for like different routes, like climbing routes and things. And then also like, I don't know, maybe even exploring like being able to connect your like wearable health device. So whether you're wearing like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or something like that, to track data within that during your climb. And then the next thing would be like community, because the Petzl community is a really big part, I think, of the Petzl brand and the lifestyle. So kind of like having access to that, all the social media, blogs, and then the last category would be like your journal. You could keep track of your climbs. And I have it more like there's like per page. This is kind of like the user journey layout that you have shown up right now. But yeah, so those are kind of the 4 things that I'm kind of like exploring. There's a lot happening like overall within the app. So these are kind of just like all the ideas put together. I think it might be a lot to try to like do all of this. So I don't know if like maybe it would be wise to really narrow down like the important things I would want to focus on. But these are kind of all the things I identified and really trying to like understand the user and what would be most important for someone who would be using the app.
If I had to suggest, because the most visually powerful thing in an image like this on a computer is the photographs. I would work really hard to try to find arresting, distinctive photographs.
Okay.
These all seem fairly middle of the line, and I think if you could find some, I'm thinking of things like the aurora borealis in snowy Alaska, or
Okay.
some really exotic, really colorful things, and they can be just as outdoorsy and stuff. But so many of these images, they just look very straightforward. And I think if you pick some really breathtakingly good photos, the crazy thing is you don't have to take them; you just have to pick them. And
Yeah, I mean, these are all directly from the Petzl website.
yeah, okay. I'd avoid that just because I don't think none of these images have that kind of really impressive, powerful grandeur of nature, right?
Okay. Okay.
And boy, that stuff is available. You just need to find it and put it in.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a term that describes that sort of image. It's called the sublime in nature. And there was a whole period in painting in the late 19th century when people were trying to depict the sublime in nature. Artists like Thomas Cole and Albert Bierstadt.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, the guy who did it with photography was Ansel Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the beautiful, even while knowing it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nature is always out to kill you, but once you realize that and can accept it and find beauty in it, it's sublime.
Okay.
Hey, does Gustav there have one of these things with him?
He's in his harness. That's great.
It seemed like a good idea, but I don't know that it is.
Jordan, I really like your flow. I like that you're thinking about the user and what the user is going to want in an app. I like that you can get feedback and keep a journal, because that's definitely important for your sanity sometimes. It's important if you're a professional and you need to take notes to document yourself, because what happens if you get lost? How was your journey?
Right.
What are the things that you're learning from that? That's part of what journaling is understanding who you are and your surroundings and the people that, that you either have lost or the people that you are meeting for the very first time. And it's very expressive. There are trails, like say Appalachian Trail, people
Right.
journals in the shelters, and you can write in the shelters and you can follow people's steps as they go. And it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's I know I have a lot going on in terms of the user journey and a lot of functions within the app that I should maybe narrow down and focus on, or?
No, I need to look it over a little bit more, what you have, because this is the map and then you have details elsewhere.
Yeah. And yeah, this is just a real mock-up to I guess really understand the function and the user journey. Not so much what the aesthetic of the app would be quite yet, but
I think they're good directions right now.
Yeah. Push ahead. I'd love to see all these sort of practical details that you've worked out incorporated with a set of imagery that really conveys grandeur.
Right. Okay.
Sweet. All right, Maddie.
All right. So it looks like some of these got repeated. I don't know.
You had sent them to me and I just dragged and dropped them in there. I know you had an image that didn't come through very clearly.
I'll double check what I uploaded then. But anyway, I think it's all here.
Yeah, it is double.
Yeah, so I was looking at a streetwear, either a sweatshirt and a whole sweatsuit, or one or the other. But
yeah,
I kind of here came up with 5 different variations of a top and 5 of a bottom that typically are used for climbing or other activities that Petzl brands for. And then I also did 5 patterns or designs in terms of fabric. And yeah, a lot of the designs I took from their website, the angles, the one with the petal kind of coming around the side of the body was kind of inspired by if you're climbing and reaching up, you know, you can read from the side, things like that. But yeah, they're all very simple, and I kept them just the main orange that Petzl uses. But I definitely think I'd play with other colors because they use a lot of colors in all of their products. But I just wanted to keep it this for now, and then I also later want to add in more details, whether it be straps for like carabiners or climbing or other activity specific uses. But one, I wanted to focus more on the design and style of it first. And I also don't know if I've done enough research yet to know, you know, where I would put the detailed things. So yeah, I just focused on this first. And then once I pick kind of a design, or I mix and match the style, you know, like take the hood from the one and mix it with something else from another. None of these like pairs are sets. It was all just kind of like mix and match everything. So yeah.
Graphically, these things I really like. I love these orange sort of panels, particularly the asymmetrical ones. You know, and most of them are asymmetrical. I guess all your imagery here is. I think that works really well. It's very, very bold and very simple. And to be honest with you, you know, these are starting to look like products that are nearly, you know, ready for the market. I'm encouraged that they look as good as they do already.
I like the way they bleed, kind of like what Bill's saying, that asymmetry about them. You know, the Petzl orange just kind of bleeds from one side to the other without extending. It's like having a banner in a graphic image. It's really cool. I like the way that you have this down here on the calf, and it's not, you know, balanced between the two of them, yet there's balance overall. I think it's exciting to see that. You know, it's a nice graphic.
Thank you.
This one right here, you know, it's interesting, but I think the big bold one is the best.
Yeah, I definitely like that one better.
When it comes to the mountain area, you have this one, but you also have this one. I like this one better than the other.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd have it as big with the full orange. I'd almost want to see a little bit of that bleed a little bit into the sleeve, the way that this kind of bleeds into the sleeve, and you have the gray on both sides.
Okay.
That's a really good idea about having this Petzl visible while you're climbing. That's a pretty neat thing. I'm curious about what the other people working with in the fashion industry here have to say about it. I'll be reading comments later, but what do y'all think? That'd be Forrest, Eric, Zari. Cool. Good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, really nice looking.
All right. Easton, you got a light fixture here?
Yeah, so I was doing lighting for Petzl. I guess I'll start in the top. So originally the first kind of idea I had was taking the ice pick kind of angles and styling that into a desk lamp, something that would clip onto the side of your desk. So that first one's kind of got like a carabiner style clamp, and then just kind of mimicking the angles of the ice pick. You'd have like, you know, your LEDs kind of inlaid into the top. Next, I just have like just like a basic helmet light that kind of follows the contour of the helmet a little bit more. Usually they're just kind of small, like just stuck on lights, like maybe with a band around them, but I think this could be more kind of fits that natural curve of the front of the helmet. The third one I was looking at was a pulley light. So I was thinking maybe having like a kind of a canvas bag and then having that attached to pulleys so that if you want to get more light out, you have to like physically pull down on like a climbing rope, and it be attached with like a metal U-buckle kind of thing that like a lot of their harnesses have that like Gustav's using. But as I got further in, I kind of started looking at the pennant lamps, I guess, which is below the first one. So I kind of like the idea of having like the climbing rope and then the metal U-buckles as like the attachment for hanging them from the ceiling. I think you could hide the like the power cord somewhere in there so that it's not really visible and it just kind of looks like it's being tied up with a knot. And using maybe like an acrylic kind of machine milled diffuser that's kind of got like a nice sharp point to it. Maybe kind of mimics some of the things with the ice pick. Then I was looking at like a chandelier, so having multiple of these kind of pennants hanging down with a little bit more of like an upward angle with the light, and then scaling that up, so making maybe like a floor lamp. So maybe you put this above your chair or like somewhere in your living room. It's like a lot larger scale. And then you got like a carabiner flashlight, and then I was thinking like more just kind of canvas for the pool table light. So like orange stitching and just trying to maybe use like that kind of texture a little bit more that they would have in their products. And then again, using like the climbing rope as like the on-off switch. That.
You know, I can see the inevitable connection between a person hanging from a carabiner, you know, off a mountain, and a lamp, a pendant lamp. You know, I mean, there's a real connection between the two. You know, they're a large object that's suspended kind of above everybody's head, and maybe a little unlikely and top heavy, but it seems to work. And pendant lights are pretty interesting, and the whole idea of having one that, you know, it might even feel heavier, you know, and or maybe it's bigger, and it just feels like this rope is really working hard. And I don't know, I think that'd be really interesting. You know, I almost started to think about the difference between a person hanging off a carabiner and a chandelier. A chandelier is very delicate and very, you know, you can hear the little pieces sort of tinkling together. And that's a totally different world than a human hanging off, you know, a wire. But I think a really solid, powerful form hanging from a really herky, powerful looking cable could be something I've never seen in a chandelier. You know, not expressing delicacy, but expressing sort of confidence in the structure that, you know, you're relying.
Yeah, I mean, because I know like the cables can hold a lot of weight, so I think that is a good starting point using that kind of climbing rope and the buckles that they already use.
Exactly. You know, another thing you might consider is the notion of making it raise and lower, because you can do that easily with carabiners and mountaineering equipment, you know, pulleys and
Yeah,
lowering.
one of my ideas at the top is similar to that, I guess.
Yeah, and just incorporate that part. I think that's part of the aesthetic. But you know, I generally tend to think of lamps as light, flimsy, ephemeral things, and this doesn't feel like that. This feels something more substantial, more confidence inspiring.
I think that you can also look at wiring that has a braided sleeve around it. So
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like maybe the braid mimics the climbing rope, so it would kind of hide the wire.
Yeah, that's a really bold, you know, look right there. I like it. Like you were saying, if you can get that machine to really, if it's glass, then you can get it molded and then maybe polished. If it's acrylic, you could have that molded too. Or if you have some other like solid material, a resin or some kind of porcelain shape, then that would be really.
For a mock-up, I think you could actually take and fold a pyramid out of, you know, 32nd of an inch sheet polyethylene, like milk bottle material. And I think you could make a model of that and stick a bulb in it and see if you can get it to feel like that.
Yeah, you could even play with the color temperature. You can make it cooler, like a higher Kelvin temperature, you know, looking like the 4,000 to 6,000, 6,500, and that gives it a blue light, so it's almost like ice. Or
Yeah.
you can keep it with the warmer temperatures, like the 2,200K up to about 3,000, 3,500K. 35 is going to be right about white light, or what we perceive. But you get into warmer temperatures and those lower Kelvin temperatures, then you'll get that orangey glow, that sunset orange.
Yeah. I kind of reminds me a little bit of like an icicle too. So like kind of like look up and you don't want it to like fall and hit you in the head. But, like, you know, it's secured. So I kind of.
chandeliers were supposed to remind you of icicles. And of course, remember what they're really there for is prisms that catch the light and reflect it multiple times. Originally with a chandelier, you have to remember the power sources for it were a series of candles, and they weren't very bright. And you didn't want to burn, 500 candles. That's expensive and a hassle. You could burn like 8 candles and then have a whole bunch of artificial icicles there, reproducing those images and doubling up the amount of light you get off it. And, you have to remember that originally chandeliers were all run by candles, and candles are dim. And the reason the chandelier is there, not for looks, but as reflectors to multiply the light.
Good. All right. Coming down here to Jackie.
Hi. So I was looking at salt and pepper shakers, which was kind of interesting because this is something I picked before I picked the brand, obviously before the brand was picked. So I was interested in the way that salt and pepper shakers kind of already exist in this like camping, backpacking world. But some of the features I was looking at specifically were compact, and also Ben and I talked about incorporating maybe more than that classic salt and pepper. And so kind of starting in no particular order, I guess the top left here I have just like a simple circular shape, which incorporates 4 spices. What's nice is, and what I tried to keep throughout a lot of these, is softer edges, because I'm imagining that these are things that will be thrown into the backpack of obviously some of these backpackers. So I don't want any sharp edges that could catch on clothing, or like a jacket that could be shoved in there. And kind of moving on to my second idea, you might have to zoom in to get into what I was talking about, but I have 3 triangles which are laid out on like a singular linear piece, which I'm imagining being similar to what they use as their roping for their headsets or their backpacks, kind of like nylon webbing. So like these 3 triangular forms sitting on nylon webbing that when kind of wrapped together and rolled into each other, they form this soft triangle form, which is nice. And that nylon webbing or headband around their headlamps actually would secure the piece together, which I think is really interesting. And then kind of moving on to the next piece, I think I have a different order than you guys, but I think it's just the spice tubes. Those are clear tubes, so you can see what you're looking at. A little bit more simple, but around the tops, I think I'm imagining them being kind of like the width of a quarter. And I really want to incorporate their classic knurling, which they use on a lot of their carabiners. I guess the layer didn't transfer when I saved it, but around the tops of my tubes, I have, around that area, I'm imagining that like really strong metal knurling, and then with a clear plastic tube. So again, incorporating that like kind of hard metal vibe that a lot of Petzl products have, but also trying to keep it lightweight with the plastic. And then, moving on to the next form, I kind of have similar to like a soap I guess, but when you open it up, this would be something you could open entirely. I have that little, I guess, like section cut that there would be sections for different spices, and you could move this little film over it to decide how much spice you wanted to release from it. Thought that was interesting, that again, that soft shape that you can expand, and then when you're able to close it, it's like a clear seal around everything. And then moving on to my next one, this one's pretty simple compared to some of the others. It deals with the cylindrical form, but honestly, the cylindrical form is very ideal when it comes to like compact packing, just because of the shape. So I think that would be really interesting. Again, it's got 4 compartments. This is also another piece that I've envisioned, that knurling being wrapped around these parts, so that when you go to unscrew each piece, obviously you have good grip. And also I've incorporated a carabiner part because that's very, I guess, associated with the Petzl brand. And then my next idea is more circular, and this would be something you could like pull apart, and then you access the spices from inside. Again, the idea of incorporating like multiple spices, and also that like round edge. Let's see what else. I also have, oh yeah, I have that spice dispenser there. That's a very shape that I wasn't super happy with. But again, it's the idea of a clear side. You be able to see what spices. I have two like larger containers on the outsides, and that would allow for like the more frequently used, like your salt and your pepper. And then maybe you can add a few smaller containers on the inside. On the left, I have the mountaintop, the idea that's kind of like comical, but also kind of a pepper grinder. If you move the bottom part, you could grind out the pepper, and then you could also pop open the top for salt. Let's see. And then this bottom is similar, I think, to the way that like a Tic Tac container functions, but I'm imagining that they are all like magnetized to each other. So you could pick and choose how many spices you want. This would be something that would come in like a set. So you could just have your classic salt and pepper. And again, clear bottom, so you could see which ones you're grabbing, and then some kind of plastic molded top. And then I think, oh, and then my last one, I'm actually really excited about this one. This one involves some kind of clear plastic, and it would be very thin. I'm really fascinated by the idea of like taking up minimal space or having something so flat that you could like fold. So this would be something similar. The thing that I was envisioning, or at least the shape I was getting inspiration from, was like the classic juice pouch. And that would be just like that flimsy material, but this would be something that you could refill. Again, it would be like somewhat clear, and maybe it would be that Petzl orange with like the knurling on the top two plastic pieces, which you could individually take off for salt and pepper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, say, I had a question. Are these meant to be portable sort of camping things, or are they traditional kitchen things?
No, I'm imagining that they're being used by the people who would be using more Petzl brands. So yes, people who are backpacking, people who are camping, definitely on the go.
Yeah, this is really interesting because, you know, I would take seriously the history of spices. You know, Americans have always been adverse to spices, and if you think about it, the term peppery is a little bit dangerous. It's like a person with a peppery personality is a little bit, might be hard to deal with, you know, and Americans have always been afraid of them. Well, the last few years, that's completely changed. The only spice that was available to most Americans, and I'd say most Englishmen, was black pepper. And before that, it was only salt. You know, that was the only thing you had. Now there's a zillion of them, and, you know, we all know them, but, you know, people really use them. Indian cooking is filled with them, you know, and I know my wife, I'm not a fan of black pepper. I like chili powder, you know, because it's hot as hell, you know, and I just love that stuff. And I would look into those various types of spices and try to design a container for each of them. You know, for years, people tried to make the variation between a salt shaker and a pepper shaker to have some kind of meaningful thing. And well, now we have a whole lot more stuff to deal with. And to be honest with you, people who were camping used to use no spices at all, ever. You know, I mean, you just fried up some trout, you know, you just ate them. You know, that was it. It was the woods, you know, you didn't care about that stuff. Well, the world is different, you know. People like Mexican food. They like, you know, Indian food. They like Thai food. They like all that stuff. And it all has all these spices in it. The whole notion of trying to come up with a way to incorporate those things into the tools we use every day, I don't think we've seen it yet, and I think it ought to happen because those have become very important things. At various points in history, they were some of the most valuable things in the world. But like when I was a kid, pepper almost never got used. That was considered damn near poison, you know? And the world has changed since then.
Right.
I think she's got a lot of good things to incorporate spice depending on the person's flavors. Pick and choose as you wish. There is nothing to distinguish salt and pepper, although we've made it black and white depending on what that is. But if somebody is, climbing in K2, they're going to have a variety of spices with them that maybe somebody who's out in Boulder might have, So I think the ability to pick and choose as you wish. What was that? I can't remember his name. Noah, Trevor Noah. He said, "No immigrants, no spice. You like salt and pepper? No spice." If you put that wall up, I thought that was
Yeah,
Right.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because if you're not importing things from the spice areas, spices are simply unknown. For instance, I was really surprised. I was at Acoma, a Native American village on top of a mesa in New Mexico, and that always seemed, kind of Spanish tradition. No, it's Native American tradition, and they didn't have any spices, and holy cow, I ate the food there, and I said, this is about the most bland food I've ever had. And another culture that doesn't use many spices is Polynesia, because they didn't have any of them. None of those islands actually had them. The Spice Islands were way down in the Indies, and that was 3,000 miles, 4,000 miles away, and these cultures didn't have any. And boy, the world's not like that anymore. Now, I think you should actually talk about the various spices, and if it would be neat if they were incorporated more into our daily tableware.
Yeah.
Jackie, I like your spice wheel. I like this one because you can put the spice dispenser because you can put 4 different spices in there.
hmm
When you and I talk, we like salt and pepper is that's pretty much all you see. But
Yeah.
you start incorporating more. This one you can get 4 in. This one you can get multiples in. I like those. I have a feeling these might get lost unless there was another container for them.
Yeah, I agree.
I like this fan that comes out. It might be hard to clean or keep clean because of the hinge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these 2 are my favorites right here. The stick's pretty interesting, and so is this one right here that folds out. But
Yeah.
while you're fiddling with the one in the middle, you're having to also fiddle with the 2 hanging and dangling off the sides.
Right.
Might have to incorporate something else, like some type of magnetic clasp where these can get out of the way while you're shaking, your pepper in there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one's really interesting along with the other 2 that you've pointed out, the spice dispenser and also the spice wheel. I think I'll explore those more.
Nice looking concepts, Jackie.
Thank you.
This one's fun too. I know you like that one. That reminded me of like something you twist and what are those, like smelling salts? Where you twist the top of the smelling salts there.
Yeah, I think so.
What is happening here? Okay. Sorry, this whole Miro thing's still getting me jacked.
Yeah, I don't know. It's making my eyes get fuzzy.
All right. Do we get Shelby's over there? Good. Move that down a little bit. I want to do things kind of like in Adobe where I hold Alt and zoom in. It's not working with this thing. Colin?
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Whoa, look at this.
Yeah, sorry. There's kind of a lot here, but I really was obsessing over the hexagon and taking it into a few different, scales and proportions. You can just start at the top left and like just be scrolling through them, I guess.
Okay.
The render should pull up pretty high res once you zoom into them. The first one is just this little like column, hexagonal column. It's like this little honey gold hexagonal column that I've been utilizing these crossing planes that sort of cut through it and then filleting all the leftover forms. I'm trying to do that and have a like leftover hexagonal form. I think that would be pretty cool with that. The next kind of like version of that little side table thing is just a hexagon, sliced on a plane. It's like a simpler version. And then moving on to like the chairs, these are just, a stock bundle of a hexagonal grid, and then it's that same concept of having these sweeping planes that sort of dissect the stock form, and then you just fillet the remaining bodies. I like where these two are going, like the white chairs especially, and then the yellow form that the lady's sitting on, and then also the green one next to it's kind of that same idea. And then there's also some more stuff at the bottom that you'll see later. The next thing is a light, a little chapstick light. So that looks like a Burt's Bees chapstick, but it would, I guess, in my mind, function as the bulb would be where the material, where the chapstick material would normally be, and then you would just be screwing, screwing the light to be more and less exposed. Next is just a chair concept. I liked the white and yellow and wooden elements of it. Next thing is hexagons swept along a particular path to create like furniture forms. So it's just a hexagonal grid, and then they're swept along the path. That's what the next two things are. We're
running through these a lot. You've got like 6 minutes for each person, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to be quick.
These shapes are very beguiling. I'm excited by all these vertical hexagon tubular things making up chairs. They're nice.
I've been just been obsessing over the hexagon.
There's some nice light fixtures that use that kind of same concept, except they use tubes. Like you've got hexagonal tubes. They use circular tubes and then cut through them.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. That's just like self-explanatory grid with soft form. That's like a tree trunk with hexagonal grid, and then nice soft columns on the right where his cursor is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you continue scrolling, I was thinking of just like a series of vases that were open and kind of laying in a bundle together, maybe modular. And then there's this sort of like shelving system where I'm sort of thinking of like this milk and honey motif with Burt's Bees. So I might not be the best person to start and like tell you all about Burt's Bees and how I'm trying to be, branding specifically to them. So all of this stuff is sort of like if Burt's Bees started their own, furniture company. So it's all very hypothetical. That's like a pack flat gridded, very simple table. And then the glass, the frosted glass with the different leveled hexagons underneath it as a base. And then still going left. This is like, more just like bars of honey. I'm thinking of just like beeswax, that sort of like idea. And then the next thing, the pink and yellow, or the pink and green guys are more of the swept hexagons.
Those are like butter.
What'd you say, Ben?
Look like butter mints.
Yeah, exactly. So just trying to make you feel very warm and sort of, so like they do lip care. So I'm thinking of it as Burt's Bees hip care instead of lip care.
So far, I think I could eat all of these.
Yeah, exactly. Chapstick sometimes makes you feel like that. And also, Burt's Bees isn't cheap chapstick. Like no one, when I buy Burt's, I feel like I'm balling a little bit. So I didn't want any of this stuff to seem like too, functional to the point where it didn't seem like luxurious enough, I guess. I don't know. This next thing is like a little planter that has these blobs, kind of like honeycomb blobs, but its aerial view is of a hexagon. Next thing is like a hexagonal frame chair that you can just see. It's very simple. It's just like a gridded hexagonal frame.
Yeah, that bucket for a plant, I think, that you just went by, that's a really beguiling shape, assembled out of all those yellow things. I don't know. It reminds me, it has the same feel of Burt's Bees, but also it avoids all the cliches. I've never seen anything like that. I think it's arresting, but it's very elegant as well.
It's like the bee pollen attached to the back of bees' legs. As they're
sort of, yeah.
Yeah. It's all kind of
sort of being reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of these are sort of like that. The next thing is these shelves, sort of just, extruded hexagons in different ways, seeing how shelves would look with the colors. Next thing is sort of a chair that's sort of this hexagonal frame that's sort of being absorbed by these foam, upholstered forms. The next thing is like little side tables that are, different flavors, like little different flavored side tables that, are obviously reminiscent of chapstick. Next thing's a very simple hexagonal bench that's just extruded. Maybe for like, I was thinking like residential, but also these things could be at, potentially like, Burt's Bees headquarters, either outside or inside. Yeah, going down, those chairs are sort of involved, just because they're, you know, sort of reminiscent of everything else I'm doing. And then the hexagonal sort of like coffee table there with the void in the middle. It's got their like pomegranate colorway to it. The next thing over to the left is just some vases done in VR. And these are just really soft forms, but I was thinking of having like honeycomb features, sort of like you were talking about, Bill, like these sort of like added on features of like just very organic looking, you know, sort of like how those already look, but with something more like bee oriented.
Yeah.
And then the next thing over is I've just been calling it like a hive sort of. This isn't really what I want it to look like, but it's sort of this like encompassing cave sort of seating experience. But yeah, they're just like larger hexagons, but it's, you know, using the same idea as before. And then is that it? That is probably it, I think.
No.
You might look at you know, Werner Panton, the Danish designer, did this. It was a set of fabric covered cutout foam pieces that stacked up into this thing. You could sit in one area of it, and then you could climb up to a sort of a little perch that you could sit in. And there was, I mean, it was weird. The thing was huge. It was about maybe 7 feet tall and about 6 feet wide and about 3 feet deep. And it was all made out of blocks of foam covered with fabric. And you could inhabit it. It was like a sort of a strange foamy habitat that sat in the middle of your house.
You've got a lot
Yeah,
of.
I've seen those. I've seen most of his installations. And yeah, he's a huge inspiration as much as Pierre Paulin is, the French designer from the 70s. I'm sure you're familiar, but he just worked with like a lot of you know, the furniture taking over the space, you know, and sort of utilizing as much, you know, surface area as you can, but providing, you know, sort of like this landscape, you know,
It was,
which I think is really interesting.
It was furniture as architecture.
Yeah,
Damn
and there's
near
not really
limited
too much
without
of a
the building.
difference. Yeah, it's just really scale is what separates them.
Yeah.
That's right. I really love this shelf that you have right there. That milk and honey one. That one makes
Yeah,
bigger.
you could zoom in if you want.
Well, these two right here
Oh yeah.
are probably also my favorite. I mean, I'm talking to you. You know, we can always come back and see them, but these
Yeah.
here, my favorite of your seating chairs. I really love those shelves. I think those are really good looking shelves. Again, this vase or this little side table is nice. This little vase right here is beautiful, or planter. Those are both very good. I like those a lot. I like the way you incorporated the hexagon in these things, the honeycomb aspect of it, you know, without being too literal with sticking with a honeycomb. However, this right here, that shelf, you know, it is a lot like honey flowing and honeycombs in a way, but without being literal to the shape of a hexagon. I really like it.
And it's also a shape that isn't cliched. I've never seen it before. It doesn't bring to mind anything other than newness.
Yeah, the shelves slide into the side of the white part, and there's like a continuation. So the shelf door slides open, and then it's just a continuation of the shelves that are on the exterior, on the interior.
I love your little white Buddha-ish figure there. That
it's just a normal guy sitting
in lotus position.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I imagine these places being. It's like when you're spending your money on Burt's Bees for your lips, you're taking the care for them seriously, you know. So hip care is like, you know, you're taking out part of your day to enjoy sitting, you know. It's like it's taking it to an extreme.
All right, Abby, I'm curious because I haven't heard any ideas from you yet about what you're going to be doing with your stuff. Let's go.
Yeah,
okay. So I wanted to design a product that encourages recycling and waste reduction for Burt's Bees. So I took a few different approaches to this, but as you can see, I have 4 different kits because I think that's something that Burt's Bees could sell. So the first one in the top left, the yellow one, is a kit of sustainable applicators for their products. Because right now Burt's Bees, their focus is mainly on the formulas and the ingredients, not necessarily the tools to use those products. So it has things like brushes, toothbrushes, sponges, beauty blenders, like things for applying makeup, but that are all made of more sustainable materials. And then I'll just do the kits first, since those are kind of my favorites. So the second kit is the orange one in the middle. So that's kind of like an emergency, like sanitation kit thing. So it has things like masks and waterproof matches, sanitation wipes. So I got inspiration from the Judy Disaster Relief Project that Red Antler did.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have seen that, but it's like a really well-designed like disaster relief kit. And then the third kit is just like a basic home cleaning kit with more sustainable and environmentally friendly materials. So like a bamboo scrub brush, reusable sponges, and laundry detergent pods. And then the last kit, the one that I'm most excited about, which is like the purplish blue one
Hold on a
at
second.
the bottom.
Hold on, Abby.
Whoa.
So I had.
Whoa.
There we go. Is that one you're talking about right there?
It's still loading on my screen. The bottom one, yeah. So that's like a home gardening kit, and I was thinking that could be like an educational tool for their customers to teach them to give back to nature. So it has simple gardening tools with flower seeds, and then it also has some Burt's Bees products to care for your skin after gardening and being outside. So it has chapstick, sunscreen, and like a hand repair cream. And so all of these kits, I was thinking, could be contained in bags that are made of recycled Burt's Bees products, because recycling is like, of course, one of their huge things for their brand. And then I was thinking with all these kits, I could kind of do a graphic, not a rebrand, but like try to make it more consistent, because that was one of the issues that I saw when I was looking at their website. And then as far as the other designs, I have the two like very literal bee looking ones are supposed to be for kids. So the beehive is like a just like a recycling bin shaped like a beehive that's like approachable for kids. And then the actual like bee backpack is supposed to be like a bathroom buddy for kids to like teach them how to use products more sustainably, how to recycle, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are, I think, all of the ones that I like the most. As I said, I think I like the gardening aspect the most. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you know, this whole connection with Burt's Bees and sustainability is an ideal thing, you know, and everybody, you know, is excited about this kind of thing today. And I think this is it's a great area you're in here, and one that it needs some innovative ideas. I think everybody likes it, but you know, most of the ideas that I see revolving around sustainability are the ones I've heard before. Love to hear some new, fresh ones. And anyway, keep working this thing up. It's exciting, and it's an area that's, you know, getting a lot of attention. But I think pretty soon people are going to start demanding more innovation in this sort of stuff, rather than just say that I'm recycling everything.
Okay.
And I kind of like the gardening aspect in that it kind of brings both sides of Burt's Bees. You know, you had Bert, who was really about the environment and really about nature, and Bee, and then you had, I can't remember her name, but she went ahead and wanted to make this thing more like a nationwide brand, and Bert left because of that, and she went more commercial. So in this aspect, you have the product where you're kind of getting back to nature, yet you're still hawking product by having some sunscreen in there, some lip balm, you know, some hand cream. I think it has both of those aspects. And I'm not saying that that's what they're trying to put forward. They are trying to put forward a back to nature thing, but it still kind of has that history behind it.
Yeah. I think in that way, it's unfortunate, you know, if they had been able to keep Bert on board and keep him as a spokesman and take the eco stuff more seriously, because to be honest with you, their customers take it seriously.
Yeah.
If the word gets out, a company doesn't take their mainline idea not seriously, not good for business. That's a bad thing to represent, and they need to watch that because it could lose them a lot of customers.
Yeah, I like this. That's a really good one. That garden one's good.
This kind of stuff would help them out, and this is the kind of stuff that ought to be the direction they're going, because to be honest with you, this is what their customers want to see.
Very cool.
Okay.
All right, Dana.
Hello. So I mainly focused on rock climbing helmets. I also have one chalk bag in there because I was just sort of exploring the line of products. They already do like hand balms and hand creams, so I didn't like focus on trying to redesign that right now. I mostly focused on the other gear. The top 3 helmets across the top in that like horizontal line have more coverage than any of the other ones. All the other ones are the same basic profile, but an issue that was discussed like in some of my research is rock climbing helmets are really good at overhead protection, and they're really good at taking multiple small impacts, but they don't protect the temple very well right now. They don't really protect the neck. So the one on the far right that has this like kind of thing that covers the neck, that's sort of an odd attempt at doing that. I'm not entirely sure what that material would be. Yeah, it would have to be something rigid, but it has like an accordion shape, so it can still fold and like allow you to like look up when you're climbing.
Actually, there's a term for that. I'm trying to remember. It was used for armorers that made armor suits.
I think it's.
I think it's called a lobster back.
Hmm.
And I think that's what it's called. You might try looking it up, because if there's a word out there, you might as well start using it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then the one to the left of that with the red accents, so on the top row, that one comes down, covers the ear and a little bit more of the temple, so you just get more side protection. And the yellow is a little bit more bumped out to have like additional padding in that area, like additional foam. And the one to the left of that, the one that's brown on the top, that one has a different geometry. And I was thinking like, if you have like, one of the main issues is like rock fall, like as you're climbing, they fall on the top of your head. That's why the top of the helmet is that's why they focus on the top of the helmet. So if there's a way to deflect some of that rather than like having a flat horizontal surface for it to fall directly on, if you could create some sort of geometry that would sort of skim it off the side of the helmet or off the top of your head and try to like diffuse some of that impact. Maybe there's a way to do that. So that's why that one is more pointed. Going down to the next line, these ones just have protection in different areas and kind of focus on the hexagon motif. The one on the left, that's also the brown color. The yellow little hexagons are ventilation and they're recessed. The one to the right of that has the top and the side protection. Those are also raised areas. So there's more layers and a little bit more removed from like your skull. The one to the right is another variation of that. It spans more across the top of the head, but focuses less on the side. And then my favorite so far is the one beneath that, the one that's brown on the bottom right corner and has like the little like flipped upside down view as well. Yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm.
That
yeah,
has
those hexagons in the bottom of the flip upside down view, they're very effective and they fit the motif beautifully.
Yep.
Yeah, so that one would, the padding itself would be the hexagon shape, and then it would be revealed through like the side vent. And the inner hexagon that's like overlaid on top of that, like venting and padding system, could have perhaps some flex to it to also help absorb impacts. Yeah, and then the very last one that's kind of like off the grid in the bottom left corner, that's the same thing. It just has a different way of revealing those vents and a different way of protecting on the side.
Yeah, really nice. It's encouraging. It looks nice and it feels exactly right on with the brand.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the way this almost reminds me of bees' wings. I know it's got the honeycomb in there, almost like a laciness there, and the shape of
Yeah.
it reminds me of a bee's wing. Um, I like this poking through. I think that's pretty awesome. It's almost as if like the bear came by and just got a chunk of it, and you get a peek into the hornet's nest, into the bee's nest.
Yeah, a human skull actually has a series of segments, and they do flex very slightly. That's not an unnatural thing. Helmets are designed to absorb energy, not designed to be completely rigid.
Right.
Yeah, this is fun. I am curious about your research and deflecting of that. That would take some more research and testing, but I think they're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
These are good. That one's my favorite right there.
Me too.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Oh, come on, for Pete's sake. Kalen, you here?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Caleb.
Hello.
All right, so you got your Game Boy here. What else?
I mean, yeah, it's not a Game Boy, but yeah. With a lot of my designs, I wanted to try and incorporate various elements of the brand in sort of an interesting way. So with the first one, I incorporated the little knob on the bottom of a chapstick container to be sort of a tactile interactive wheel that you have on the top right of the system. So maybe that could be like if you've ever played Minecraft, you need to scroll through your hotbar. So maybe you could do something like that to scroll through in-game menus or use some sort of as a mechanic in games. I'm not really sure which. The next one is sort of reminiscent of this lipstick design that Burt's Bees has, where it has the hexagonal pattern on the side of the lipstick container, which I thought was a really interesting motif. So I incorporated that into sort of a larger PC case system. So as you see, there'd be that vent on both sides of it. So cold air comes in one side and hot air comes out the other side. So there'd be like a mesh behind those honeycombs. Then with the next one, the twisted hexagon, I don't know if you can zoom in, there's a little illuminated bee logo up on top. So that would be glowing, and a nice little glowing power button. And the whole thing would be out of aluminum or some other material. I'm not really sure what I would want to make that out of. Potentially composite, so plastic on the outside and then aluminum on the inside. And so you see the vents on the bottom and also all the ports. So that's your cool air intake, and then your hot air is exhausted out of the top of the machine. So that would be another PC design. Then on the next one, I started thinking about how I could use the fins in order to create a system that's entirely passively cooled. So with this, the entire case is machined out of one big block of aluminum, and those are fins, which help to wick away heat from the central compute unit in the middle. So that means that it would be perfectly silent without any air moving and without any fans, because some people that are really into high-end computers are really into having the entire thing be passively cooled. So that was trying to do a similar approach. Again, with the illuminated like B button on top, maybe this would be anodized orange. I think that might be kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how importantly Steve Jobs placed passive cooling. He hated fans and he wanted the whole thing to be dead silent. And he made quite a number of early computers, particularly the Apple III, which was a total disaster because it was passively cooled, but it didn't work very well. It overheated a lot.
Yeah.
And he kept doing it over and over again. He finally was able to get it to work.
Even modern day Apple products still thermal throttle a lot. It's a continuing problem.
It's true.
But that little one right there in the middle is very similar to like a Google Home. So this one would be more for game streaming, where you would plug it into your TV and then your games are streamed to your television or your media center over the internet. So the top of it would be wood and the bottom of it would be aluminum. This one doesn't really need
passive cooling or vents because all the heavy lifting is done in the cloud. So that one would be a lot smaller. This is a similar idea, so sort of Google Home shaped, where the top would be wood and the bottom would be aluminum. And so Burt's Bees also creates some gift boxes in this form, and I really liked it and wanted some way to incorporate that into some of my designs. This one right here is sort of, I was just playing with forms really and how I could soften up an extruded hexagon in various ways. And this, I really like how compact the design of this one is. This one, again, would be more of about the size of a Google Home and rely very heavily on cloud data transfer. And so there's only 3 USB-C ports on the back of it. So one would be power input, and then the other 2 would be your displays, or maybe one would be a display and one would be a wired controller. I also envision it being able to be Bluetooth controlled. This one is similar to the first concept, but the radius continues along the bottom edge, and I just thought that that was worth showing because I thought it was really interesting. And then the last one is just a variant of the twisted one, but instead of being twisted, it's very straight and monolithic, and it again has all the ports on the bottom. I don't know if I showed that in the first one. Can you go back up to the twisted version of this one? Yeah, all the ports are in the bottom, and then the wires come out the back through that slit. So that means that none of the side surfaces are interrupted by having ports on them. And I really like the use of USB-C because USB-C can be used either for data or for power or for game consoles. And so it means that you can have all of the same port and use them in a variety of ways, which I think is fun. So yeah, that's everything. Oh wait, there should be one more on there. There should be another one that's passively cooled.
There you go.
Oh yeah, there's 2 more. Yeah. So the one that this one is also made up of a series of fins, which act as cooling fins for the entire system. So this one would be a much more, the one on the right, would be a much more powerful gaming computer. So it has a much larger surface area in order to cool all the internals. And then again, all of the ports are coming in on the back, and that front face has 2 USB-Cs and the B glowing button. And then the one on the left, there would be wire mesh underneath that hexagon, and then all the ports are in that little recessed area. And so that would be, the entire surface would be hot air exhaust, basically.
Mm-hmm. Do you imagine these in molded plastic? What materials do you see?
Yeah, so the ones that are passively cooled obviously have to be machined out of 1 block of aluminum. So those are very high-end, very expensive. And a lot of the other ones, I'm envisioning sort of fun, sort of candy-colored thermoplastics. So the portable ones, I'm thinking would be molded thermoplastic. The smaller ones that are sort of Google Home sized, I'm envisioning a lot of dual material. So maybe the top half could be machined out of wood and then laser engraved with the logo on it, and the bottom half would be either machined aluminum or formed thermoplastic. But that's really what I'm going to do next when I pick one design, is really hone in on the various materials that I want to incorporate.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
Yeah, you got 2 versions of this one. I like this one the best, the kind of mild twist to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that better than the one that's just got straight sides.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
The twist is nice.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the way that top leaves that open. That's pretty clean, and that's a vent. You know, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Your thermal fins here, that would be good if you were on a motorcycle because you're moving forward and therefore the air is passing through all these guys horizontally. But with it being stationary on top of a desktop, you're having to rely upon the cool air from the floor moving up vertically. So it might be better to switch these things to go vertically or at a diagonal, like you got the one down here at a diagonal.
Yeah. So that bottom one, they're all
yeah
at a much steeper angle.
Yeah.
But that one right there, the horizontal one, is much smaller, and so you'd be doing a lot. Like that one would be plugged into your television, and it'd be more for like casual gaming, whereas the one on the bottom would be for like rendering and doing heavy gaming and stuff. And so I made it smaller because I know that the cooling wouldn't work as well, and so you would be doing like less intensive loads on it, was sort of the idea.
What I'm saying is, like, if air's moving vertically, up through here, it's not passing through the fence. It's just passing on the outside and mildly going in the inside.
Yeah. It's really just relying on passive radiation. It wouldn't be as effective.
Okay.
I mean, it's less effective than if it was vertical. You're right.
These are cool looking concepts. I like the way this looks. I really do. It'd be nice to have that mesh on the backside, like you said. This twisted one is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good looking concept, man. And even this one right here with all the fins going up. To me, this one I think is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely enough.
Cool.
And then this one would be second.
Cool.
2 different ways. Isaiah, I haven't heard from Isaiah. Has anybody heard from Isaiah? Okay. We'll check in with him later. All right, last group. We got Kong.
Kongland.
I got to design a dog toy last night for a friend who has a company in Germany. HS Sprenger. I got to design a big dog toy.
All right. What do you is it going to be made out of?
Rubber.
Yeah.
But
Good.
these people are pretty well known for their Belgian Malinois, a lot of canine dogs, or military and police dogs. And so they hit me up because I used to work with one of the guys. And so they're making like the big 4-inch tough solid rubber. A German Shepherd is not going to tear through it easily. Big dogs got to play too. All right. So we got some musical things going on here.
Yeah, this is nice.
Oh yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we hear you
Sweet.
fine.
All right, so for the top 3, I was kind of exploring more of like a interactive feeding experience for a dog, kind of still using the classical Kong shape that they know and love, and are used to being fed out of as sort of the mouthpiece of this sort of feeding instrument. So I did 3 versions of that with a saxophone, clarinet, and trumpet. The saxophone one would just be a bunch of conjoined spheres, sort of mimicking the original Kong's aesthetic. And as you can see on the trumpet, I have sort of like some textures and patterns for the dogs to bite on. And I mean, ideally, all of these would have a squeaker built into it, so that when it's being used and the dog's eating it, it would squeak and make a noise, and be sort of like a little cute feeding experience for this dog. But then I sort of all the rest ones I started gravitating towards more of kind of a useful product. I didn't really see a need for another dog chew toy on the market, so I was kind of more exploring what I'm interested in with percussion and actual human instruments, just using the Kong brand and aesthetic.
All right, dog bongo drums.
Yeah, so those are just bongos, called congos. Just sort of, they'd all be injection molded rubber, at least the coating, the exterior would be. I was really interested in the rubber that they use is sort of a really durable rubber that could be used to coat a lot of these products and prevent the products from getting scratched and dinged up, especially like the bass drum. Being in the marching band, those bass drums get thrown around a lot and dropped, and rubber coating on them would definitely protect it from a lot of the wear and damage of everyday marching. And the drumsticks I had a lot of fun with. They were I'd imagine them being just covered in a thin coat of rubber, so it'd still be a wooden stick. And the little grips, no other drumstick is kind of designed with those little grips to put your fingers around, which is pretty interesting.
Could that be like a sleeve? Like, so you have certain diameters depending on, what feel you want, like thicker diameters versus thinner diameters. Could that be like a sleeve that you slide this onto until, of course, you break the stick, and then you can take your rubber sleeve off of it and then put it.
Yeah, like onto a pre-existing stick. That's a really good idea. Because I'm interested in sort of not recreating these products, but sort of creating a protective barrier around them. So for the drum thrones, they're called. That's the seat you sit on when you play a drum. we call them through. And so the first one, the one on the left, doesn't move. It's just a static drum chair that would rotate along a central axis. But the second one would be fitted with some sort of flexibility around the central axis, where you can move around the drum set and reach different parts easier and not be stuck on one like static seat. So the djembe is the one next on the far right. The djembe is a traditional African drum. So it's pretty interesting using Kong's aesthetic to design such a, handcrafted traditional drum. But the djembe is a really fun instrument, and I've always been interested in designing one. So figured might as well just slap the Kong aesthetic on there and make it a Kong drum. But the drum kit, it was, I think the one that I'm most interested in is creating, a rubber sleeve that goes around your pre-existing drum kit that protects it, and you could transport it. Because I've moved in drum sets countless of times, and I can't tell you how many times I've banged it into the door or the door frame or a car or something. And it's having a rubber casing around all these drums would, definitely protect it.
Do you
So
most often damage the drum head?
Yeah, the drum head and the wood casing that's around the drum. That's usually, and then once that gets hit, the mechanical parts start to loosen and fall out. And
You ever seen the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck?
I have.
It's just reminded me of like this could be like Kong on parade.
Yeah.
Fun.
And a great industrial designer, Brooks Stevens, designed that Oscar Mayer Wiener truck.
Yeah, for a second, the Congos, I thought that was like a toy that the dog gets in the middle of, and then while it's shaking its head, you're banging around on it.
Yeah, I sort of wanted to stray away from the dog products.
Yeah.
Just because originally, from the beginning, I've been interested in creating a drum, like a drum kit or something. So I think I could still stick with that product and just create sort of an accessory for that product that already exists.
Yeah, it strikes me of the changes that happened in binoculars when they went to the rubber armored binoculars. This is a rubber armored drum. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I like it. You have a whole percussion set there.
Yeah, I'm hoping to, incorporate the throne as well, even though it's a separate concept, but also design that as part of the kit itself.
It's part of the musical family. Is it an instrument? No, I mean, unless you want to turn it into a fountain. But it's required, seating for a drum kit or for a djembe. That's good. Unless you want to kneel on top of the djembe. These are good. I like these. I like those more than I do the dog flutes and the clarinet, the saxophone, and the trumpet.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Claire. Musical dog toy. Or musical instrument with dog. Kong. Claire here?
Hi, Claire.
Claire is not here.
Yeah, we're down to 26. We might have lost a couple.
All right, let's move in here. So we got a bunny rattle or squeaker. So you got the probably hard rubber and then the soft. That's pretty common with a lot of dog toys. Rattling the squeaking is definitely common. My dogs would share that to pieces. Ooh, that's kind of fun. That reminds me of like those. You can pull them apart and they. Well, I guess there it says it's an accordion. I'm dumb. Cat furniture. All right. I've had a lot of cat furniture. I've never had a cat that's used it. I'm not saying all cats, but
Cats aren't the most obedient creatures. I think if you spend money on them, they're kind of offended.
this is neat. If you could train a dog to use a doorbell, like a doggy doorbell. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, we hang bells on our back door on the inside for the dog to ring when she wants to go out, and that she actually does it.
Mm-hmm. I get up early enough. My dogs don't do it. Squeakers. Okay. Music players. I wonder what kind of sounds they would play. Jeez. What happened?
Whoa.
I don't know what happened.
No.
All right, we're almost done, folks.
Yeah. We're in the home stretch here.
A calming drum, Kong drum. Matt, what's that type of the drum where you have a lot of different sounds on either side? Not the
Steel drum?
not a steel drum. No, it's like the inverse of a steel drum.
Timpani?
What's it called? Timpani? No, timpani's like the big kettle. And then you have like the steel drum, which are basically 55-gallon barrels that they've
Yeah, they stretch the top with a torch.
yeah, torch and hammers.
Yeah, and they just stand there and beat them.
There's another one, and I can't think of the name of it. That reminds me of it.
Bongos?
Not a bongo. If I find it, I'll send an image out. It's steel or metal or wood. Hippies play them.
The turtle one.
It's like a turtle. Yeah. Like a turtle shell. Tree dispenser. That reminds me of a humbucker for a guitar. Or not a humbucker, a pickup.
Yeah.
Which is yeah. Whistle dome. Ooh. That looks like a fun thing.
Yeah, that's a dog minefield of squeakers.
Your neighbors will probably hate you. But
Already they don't. That'd be a whole lot of fun. You could feel like every time your dog digs a hole in the yard, which I've got several, then I could put one of those in there and then they could pat on. Wow, that's fun.
Yeah, I noticed when I moved into my new house, I used to stand on the back deck and yell for the dog to come back, and then I realized that when I used to do that, nobody could hear it. Now there's neighbors all over the place, and they can hear it, and me saying, "Go poop," really loud. I realize how unfriendly that sounds.
I love that whistle dome. I think that's fun. I like the accordion. I can just see a dog shaking his head back and forth, and it's just back and forth as it goes. There's a lot of interesting concepts here.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Gustav, you're here.
Yeah, let's
Yep.
hear it.
And I'm down from the swing, unfortunately.
Sorry, boss. You're in a presentation, professionalism. All right, what do you got here?
So the first one is, what if you took like a water bottle that would go in the water bottle cage on your bike, and half of it was a water bottle, the other half was a sort of container that held all the loose like bike tools in it. So you have a set of Allen keys, spoke wrench, tire lever, bacon strips and a tire plug, and then like CO2 later on the other side. And then it'd have like these outside hard rubberized red accents on it.
Yeah, Gustav, your mic is breaking up a little bit. Can the rest of you guys hear him?
Yeah, I've been having some mic issues the past couple of days. Our Wi-Fi is kind of trash. I'm sorry, but
Okay, hang in there.
yeah. And then the next one is like a tool roll. So you could, with that it could be something that just goes in the back of your jersey pocket, or it gets strapped to the underside of your bike seat, and that would have a whole variety of tools. And then next one, Spike's collar. I was really reaching for ideas at this point when I made that one. It's a dog collar for your dog. And it looks kind of like
screwdriver
spikes
heads
from like
in
a
it.
cartoon, but instead of them being spikes, they're different bike tools. So they're different size hex bits. Got a Phillips, a flathead, and then it's still got the rings, name tag on. And then next one is, what about some sort of, I guess it is a chewer that your dog can use, but it's also got all your bike tools inside.
Okay.
So I don't know how good an idea that would be in long term. Like you're playing fetch with your bike tools with your dog. Could end very poorly.
You don't want your dog biting into something gnarly.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next one is another collar variations. This one's a little more subdued. And so basically it'd be like adding a pouch onto a dog collar. And it's got a slim, nice thin bike tool that just slides in there. And so if you're out on the trail riding, got your trail dog with you, you need to make a quick fix, just call him over and just grab it out of his collar. And that's a little safer than the collar like the other.
Yeah.
This next one is bar and storage. Bike handlebars are hollow inside. So there are some products on the market where they basically store the tools inside of them. And so you pull it out with the bar ends. And so one side would have an interchangeable bit system with all the different size bits you need. And then the other side would have 2 tire levers that stick in.
Okay.
And then
That's
next
nice
one is a chain brake multi-tool. I've actually snapped chains multiple times on the trail. This is something that I've actually wished I had had a couple times when I've been riding. Something that you can pull your chain apart and then put it back together. And then on these things, usually the handles don't have any tools in them. But I was like, what if you take the handle and kind of cut that area out so that it's got room for more tools? And then it just kind of had the branding on the side, like where it's got the red accent.
Yeah.
And then there's the Kong pump, which takes that shape from the classic Kong toy, and it's a hand pump, and you just kind of squeeze it to inflate your tire. With that one, I'm concerned that you probably wouldn't be able to build enough pressure.
Yeah.
And then next one's a frame strap, so it's kind of taking their dog collar idea, like that material, but then turning it into a strap that you use on your bike frame. And so it holds like a spare inner tube and then the bike tools. And so with that one, I think I'd have 2 tools that come with it, with 2 specific slots they slide into on that collar so that they don't move around. And so then all you need to really add to that kit is an inner tube, whatever size tire you want. Yeah. And then the next one is like sort of the ultimate tool where it has everything you could possibly need on the trail. It's got tire levers, it's got all the bits, it's also got a chain breaker built in, and then the tire levers also have spoke wrenches built into them where there's arrows to it, along with using the tire lever to operate the chain breaker as the handle.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then the Kong. Go ahead,
Gustav,
Bill.
I was thinking with this one, the multi-tool thing. I think it would be interesting to tie the dog more into it, other than but to make it something that the dog can carry. So maybe it fits into a little vest or a collar or something like that. All these little sort of hand tools, but rather than have the human carry them, have the dog carry them. But you need some kind of holster that fits a dog.
Yeah.
I would design a holster with all these little multi-tools, and I think then it ties the dog closer into the product.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if I do a sort of like chest harness or something that just fits on them. Maybe also protects them from brush or something they might run into on the trail. So
Yeah.
they could have like a chest plate or something.
I remember a few years ago for dogs that go on hikes, they make little doggy, backpacks that you can carry stuff in. They're not very big, and you can't put a lot of weight in them. But still, particularly if you have a big dog, they're pretty macho.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And then personally, if I went that route, I think I'd want to do something just in the collar because it's a lot smaller. And I feel it wouldn't bother the dog as much. They're used to wearing a collar. It'd be kind of a centralized. And then the last one is, what if you took the Kong Wubba and just added tools onto the ends of the tassels, kind of like you see those. You'll see them next to trails sometimes, the bike maintenance stations where they've got all the tools chained to the station. So instead, like your dog's chew toy has all your tools. You're like, George, fetch, and he brings you the whole like tool set.
That'll take some training.
My dog would do it. Well, one of them would.
I like your multi-tool and your ultimate tool. Could you add like a little bit of that Kong rubber to the side just to ease edge? I mean, I don't know how hard you're going to be trying to crank on something, but the kind of sharp-ish edge you have there, I mean, you can put a little bevel on it or a little bit of a fillet, or you can add a little bit of rubber, and that'll give you some extra texture if you got sweaty hands or something.
Yeah.
It's nice to see dogs doing some work, and I mean, dogs used to be working dogs all the time. They were out there, digging truffles and catching rats, and you know, they're practical animals, and people have kind of forgotten that. And I think it's nice, you know, give them a little bit of a job. It's the opposite of when I was in Hong Kong. I remember seeing a Pomeranian that looked just like looked like mine, and these two women were giving the Pomeranian a walk in a baby carriage. So they were walking. The Pomeranian was riding and just sort of looking out, you know. And it's like, boy, that's a spoiled dog, you know. You'd never earn your keep doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I got cattle dogs. They work very, very hard.
Yeah.
Good looking concepts, Gustav. Multi-tools, the ultimate tool. I agree with you. That's probably going to be hard to get enough pressure into.
Yeah. I feel if I were to do one, I'd either do like the multi-tool or the ultimate, like the frame strap combined with the multi-tool. I feel could be nice, or go the other direction with the collar, and one or the other.
Collar's a good one, or a harness, something to make the dog do a little work too. Like, I love having a harness where the dog can carry its own food.
Yeah. Why should you have to carry the stuff that they're?
All right, Alex, we're moving on to you, sir.
Oh man, they got even wilder now.
Alex?
I had a lot of fun with Sketchbook, and I'd been putting this off, so I'm not gonna lie, I didn't sleep last night. I worked on this, but it was actually really great, and Sketchbook is really fun.
Yeah, I think this is nice. It looks like you really totally cut loose.
Yeah, I did. There's some really funky ones, like that one kind of right above the big Kong logo, Concept 9.
Yeah, that's weird.
That one's just ridiculous. It's got a ball in the middle and then a weird thing and that funky blue shape, and it's, you know, incredibly highly polished, and just the ball.
Yeah, the only thing it's missing is teeth marks.
it's definitely kind of weird. I'll kind of run through. I tried to keep it all within the vein of the kind of handheld device that's a little smaller for just doing pet hair off of furniture and upholstery, or cleaning up like quick messes, whether that's just bits of food on the ground or stuff like that. So it's a pretty small type of vacuum. Some of the more, I think, ridiculous ones that don't make a lot of sense, like in the upper right, which is the actual Kong toy in the shape of the vacuum. And I also would like to point out that a lot of these don't have any attachments on the end of them. And that's because any decent vacuum like this should have 2 or 3 different attachments. So in order to do upholstery, it needs to have a motorized attachment. And the only design thing I have to change for that is that the roller has to be able to come out easily. Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
No, you're
has to be able to come out easily, because hair gets tangled on it all the time, especially dog hair and stuff. And a lot of times they have like screws and stuff to get the little scrubber roller out. So that's the only design feature I really have to work into that, or else they're pretty standard. The suction comes in the back and they spin. That one kind of bottom, the lowest row directed to the left of the words, has something roughly what it would look like on the front of it, you know. I really just played with forms and trying to integrate the brand and the logo into it. I think far left in the middle was the most interesting integration of the logo, which is as a negative in the handle there. So that's just like maybe a molded black plastic handle, and then just the rubber is in those 2 little parts there to make it appropriate to hold. But you see the logo, but it's not as glaring, and it's kind of uniquely fitted in. And I think the worst integration of the Kong toy is in the middle one there, which is that it's kind of in there in the middle, and you just stick the things into it on either side, and it's kind of just existing. And then the kind of bubble shape, which is all over the place, makes a nice handle. And so I use that a lot of different ways in a lot of different places.
Yeah, I actually like the weird contrast between the transparent parts and the red rubber.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. And the problem is like, so, and then there's the one on the far right and the one kind of on the bottom. I stuck the Kong toy inside of it as the filter, or the kind of the pre-filter, which is just more of a mesh basically that could be anything. And it's kind of looks weird in there because it's almost like it's stuck inside the vacuum, and it would be all dirty and have dust around it and stuff. But it was fun, you know, that shape is normally just kind of a bubble or a half circle or kind of a slight protrusion. So there's options for that. But I'm kind of leaning more towards, I don't know, I'm a little bit stuck.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's hard, you know, because I mean these are sort of caricatures, but to be honest with you, like the one at the bottom on the left with that
Mhm.
row of things, that's
Yeah.
really a beguiling shape, and the contrast between the transparent bit and the ribbed bit and the
Mhm.
weird bumpy Kong toy bit. I
Yeah.
don't know, it's completely insane, and yet it actually fits together pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's the craziest one, I think. It's like a tentacle coming down across and around it.
Yeah, I agree with Bill. That's a fun one. I like that a lot.
Definitely funky. I don't know if I like it. I think it's interesting. That was number 10. That was the kind of the Hail Mary at the end.
Not a Mary. So,
I like it. I think this is an interesting area, and it's pretty daring. You know, I mean, you're known for coming up with a whole lot of designs, and I think it's nice that you're sort of flexing your muscles and trying something that I think ordinarily we would try to avoid.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the handle, like where is your hand and the shape of this? You know, like this does kind of stick straight up. If
Mhm.
you're vacuuming, are you having to put your wrist into extension or flexion? You know?
Yeah, so the one I have is kind of like that, and it's not as annoying as you might think because the motor, the weight of the motor is in front of it. So and then once it's on whatever surface,
Yeah.
kind of dangled in your hand versus the more kind of Dyson-esque one on the far right.
Yep.
That's how the Dyson kind of handhelds work. It's more of a vertical handle and there's a trigger. And those are completely different because the motor is actually housed up above it because they make really small motors, and the battery pack is down below. So you get this kind of weight balance, which Dyson's the only company that has the technology to do that with motors that small.
Yeah.
So it's, that one is kind of interesting, I think.
Think about how you're working with the tool. So if you're pushing forward, you know, your hand is this way, not that way.
Mhm.
And if you're pushing in this direction, you know, that's not good for your wrist. You're in extension right here and you're putting a lot of pressure on your wrist. Whereas
Yeah.
the Dyson one, or like a handsaw, you know, a lot of power tools, they're all kind of like in this shape as opposed to being here. You're going to cause some RSI, but hopefully you're not having a vacuum for 4 or 5 hours at a time.
It was like a quick little thing. It's maybe that one in the upper left starts to address that a little more, or the one to the right of that where it's a full arc.
Yeah, just thinking about how, like, what's the motions you're going to be doing? What's your wrist going to be doing? How is that going to affect your long-term use of this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, none of these things they're small and they're battery powered, so you're not going to use them all day.
That's right.
Yeah. So I don't think on a practical level, that kind of stuff is all that important because it's not the kind of thing you'd see professional carpet people using.
I was thinking of elderly people too, or other people who are not as able. That one on the bottom, the whole back half of it is a handle.
Mm-hmm.
It's two sides, so you could get both hands on there. And the whole head was designed to swivel, or the idea was it could swivel 360, so you could hold it, like so, and vacuum, or along the back, or however you needed to get your hands all over it, which was kind of an interesting idea.
Okay.
And this rubber is so grippy. It kind of dries your hands out in a weird way, actually.
Wait till you get slobbery on it.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on doing that.
It dries out pretty quick.
I don't know, which ones are you guys feeling stylistically? Because I agree with the handle thing. I gotta look in that a little more.
I like 10, Alex.
10, really?
I mean, you can adjust some of the aesthetic of it, but the overall profile is pretty nice.
Yeah. 10
Yeah, I like how. Sorry,
nice
go ahead,
looking
Bill.
product.
Yeah, it's so funny. That is my least favorite one.
What is happening in the background?
I think that's Colin.
Yeah, number 10's my favorite.
Really?
Yep, I kind of like this one here. That's a pretty nice one.
That one, the vanilla one. Yeah.
And Alex, like I said, I put all the stuff about ergonomics and especially hand tools in Canvas.
I will take a closer look at that. Obviously.
You got.
All right, who we on now?
This is Shelby. I believe this is the last one, and then we should be done for the day. Unless
Hi, Shelby.
Hi.
All
Can
right.
you
let's
hear me?
hear it. Yep.
All right. So I guess he's pulling it over to this first one. So I guess when I was trying to kind of create like the different concepts, I was thinking about like Kong as a brand kind of more holistically. I noticed that there weren't a lot of similarities between their products specifically, other than like the use is to kind of connect like the owner and the pet more, plus like their color scheme. So I wanted to kind of incorporate more of, I guess, the like focus on the function and how that kind of focuses on like the pet owner relationship. So anyways, this first one is a collapsible pet carrier. It's the idea is that it would be good for like like if you're going to an airport and you're traveling, that you could carry your pet in this, but you can fold it up pretty easy with the accordion style. Then this second one is kind of like a harness. It's a little hard to see the pockets there, but it's basically kind of like a harness backpack for the dog. It basically has like just enough pockets to like store anything you might need, maybe like doggy bags or anything else like that that you would maybe need for your pet while you're going on maybe a hike or something. Then this next one is kind of, the idea is it's for like if someone's maybe running or hiking, that you could wear this and there's like a retractable piece on the side, so you can use that to run with the dog, and it's kind of keeps the slack from tripping the dog or the owner up, and then you can kind of go exercise with your pet. This next one's my favorite. This one I was kind of trying to get like that bump shape incorporated a little bit of like the classic Kong, but the idea is that you could fold the front two pockets back, which is also an accordion style, and then you kind of have just a regular slim backpack, so you could just use it. You don't even have to be a pet owner, but the idea is that it would be good for like taking your dog to a dog park, because there's like fence hooks on it, and the back and bottom are rigid that way, so when you could hang it on a fence and it sits straight and stiff, so you can put like messy dog toys in it. The idea is that the inside is like lined with like kind of a mess-free liner, so the idea is it's for like outdoor use.
These folding ones, these radius ones, I think both of them are really beguiling, and they strike me as pretty strong ideas. And you know, my dog weighs 10 pounds, and the one I had before that weighed 4. You know, so these are perfectly practical things for a dog like that. And I mean, we would constantly carry the dog in a backpack, and actually it was really funny. And we would go into buildings, and we would go into hotels where dogs weren't allowed, and nobody even knew we had a dog in there. It was great.
Okay, so this one on the right is kind of similar to like the fanny pack looking one, but I was trying to kind of, like, my brand does like bags and travel stuff, so I've been mostly focusing on like being on the go. So this was kind of like trying to simplify maybe like your just basic needs as like a dog owner wanting to go exercise. So the idea is it's just like a workout armband that you can attach your phone, and it would have like doggy bags on the side and possibly other attachments.
I like the dog aspect.
Yeah, and then this duffel bag right here is kind of supposed to be just a classic duffel bag that you'd kind of split between like human and dog use. Like one side would have that like same mess-free lining, and you could kind of use that to maybe put like muddy toys or anything that's kind of dirtier. And then you could maybe put like your maybe if you're traveling somewhere, like your own clothes and stuff on the other side. So it kind of has that separation, but you could also, again, just use it as just a duffel bag as like a person, not necessarily for a pet owner. Because I realized that like a lot of like the pet accessories are for people that are really, really like into like their animals and like spend, because like I know a lot of people that are animal people, but they don't go and spend a lot of money on different accessories. So this is typically, I feel like, for trainers and people that are able to spend more on their pets. So I kind of also wanted to make some of the products like dual use, where it doesn't have to be just for a pet. It can also be for just the owner. And then this one right here is similar. It's like another travel bag, kind of with a spot on the bottom to separate messier stuff, but it has like a roll up pouch that attaches to either side. and you can kind of buckle the whole bag into the back seat and put a seat cover down. That way, so your pet can travel with you without getting the car messy.
I like that. That's good.
This one right here is a collapsible litter box. So the idea is you have like a tray on the bottom that you pull like different inserts out of, and the inserts would kind of similar to like a popcorn bag where it's lays flat, but you like pop it obviously, and then there's stuff inside. It's kind of similar, but just with like litter. So you kind of like pull an insert out and place it inside the bin, and then your animal could use it maybe if you're in the car, and you can just like throw it out later. And it has buckle spots on the back too. And then then this one right here is this one's kind of similar to like the first like I guess airport carriers. Like the focus of this one is like traveling with your animal this way. So it kind of has like another like accordion like fold out pet carrier, but it's nice because it folds flat and it can just be used as like a suitcase. But it has like a hard top on the top of it, the bag, so you can set stuff on it, and the side opens up just as like a regular duffel bag. But the front is stiff so that the pet carrier sits there just fine. And then the last thing is, this is like thinking more about dog trainers and dog walkers. It's just kind of like a slim backpack, since a lot of times like people that are training or walking dogs end up having a lot to keep an eye on. So I thought a lighter weight pack would be good. And it has like 2 clips on the bottom that you can put like carabiners on if you have a bunch of leashes or whatever it may be. And then it has kind of like a smell-proof pouch on the back if you need to use a doggy bag but you don't have anywhere to throw it away.
I kind of like the thought that maybe this is not on the back, but this is on the front, like the chest.
Mm-hmm.
That if you need to grab a treat or get something, you don't have to take off the bag. You just zip, 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 and even you can clip
Mm-hmm.
then to either side.
I think this reminds me of the way I think my dog sees me. You know, I'm not the owner and he's the dog. He's the boss and I'm the servant. I'm there to provide treats and things like that for him, entertainment and that kind of stuff.
These are good looking concepts, Shelby.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that you have the screen where the animal can see you as you're walking, you know?
Yeah, that was kind of still like inspired by the like pet owner relationship that I was talking about.
I like the compartments where you can have dirty versus clean. So say you are going to the gym with a duffel bag. You're not bringing your dog, but you get your clean clothes one side, dirty clothes on the other side, or maybe you do dog treats or dog toys or slobbery stuffs. These are fun. I like the idea of having a poop bag on your wrist because, you know, dogs inevitably go poop.
Mm-hmm.
These are good. That's a nice looking harness.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
A concern about this retractable leash here. I mean, I've had retractables where I have been running, the dog is running in between my legs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes letting go of a leash is good, so I can just let them get from underneath and between my legs. Whereas if this thing's retractable, then I'm getting wound up in it.
That's the idea, is that it doesn't like lock. The hope is that it's kind of like it's not like a tight retracting, I guess, is that you could run, the dog could kind of go with you. It more just is, it retracts just enough to pick up the slack so you and the dog aren't tripping, but they still have like, they can move away from you fine.
Uh-huh. Cool. They look good.
Nice.
Well, anybody have any concerns or questions or anything?
Yeah. Thanks for all this stuff, folks. It's great to see.
Yeah.
And what's our next deadline, Ben? What's to come here?
Next Monday, I haven't posted the assignment, but next Monday, let's go ahead and have one more final concept. You know, pick one of the two or combine, you know, some of the thoughts that we've had today into one cohesive concept. Give me a really nice rendering of that. And then we can explore after that into the 3-dimensional side, checking cross sections, materials, etc. Yeah.
Sounds good, Ben.
So do next Monday is like a You mean like a computer rendering or just a hand rendering?
It can be a hand rendering or computer rendering, whatever you're comfortable in. You know, like Cullen did all
Okay.
his drawings basically in computer. That's what he's comfortable in. That's good. If you're better with hand drawing, give me hand drawings. All right. I would like to see computer renderings at some point, or at least some concepts, but I understand certain things prohibit people from being able to do that.
Yeah. Ben, that's a whole week from now, right?
1 week to do one really nice concept drawing. All right. I'm going to put some stipulations in there. You know, I want a nice perspective view, but I want at least a top, like plan view and overhead, and give me a side elevation, a front view, you know, 3 orthographic views, because that's important to also give information to your clients, but a really nice big perspective view of it. That clear with everybody? Anybody have any questions? You okay? All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Sounds good to me, folks. Let's just keep up the good work here. This is nice.
Thanks, everyone. And yes, Olivia, that was a hand pan drum. Bye, everybody. Go ahead and stop.